Wakey, wakey, hello, good morning, and many thanks indeed for joining us here on Morning Prime. It is the 20th of February 2024. Can you believe it? Just a few days, and then we are going to see off this month. And remember, this is the longest month of February, being a leap year, that is. We have more days in February. Thank you very much for choosing KTN News to inform you this morning, where you get the whole story. Today you have Siasa Fiesta coming your way, where we take a critical analysis of the latest development in the world of politics and current affairs, just putting tails on yesterday's retreat in Naivasha, that is the Kenya Kwanza retreat. And also we shall be looking at what is happening with the AU debate, which is taking also a new turn as well. We have a new call for Uhuru Kenyatta to take up this particular job. Also, are we seeing now the disintegration and fragmentation of Azimio in regard to this particular issue that is simmering here or in the country? All right, what is the way forward? And is it a booby trap for Raila Odinga this time forth, just as it was with the BBI? Is it meant to try and hem him politically? And will this also be his political career being put on the chopping block? That is the biggest question we shall be asking, and we should be joined this morning by Dr. Atendo Molo. Otenda Molo is a senior counsel and also the member of parliament for Rarieda. Also we'll be joined by Danson Mungatana, senator of Tana River. We'll be joined by Yusuf Hassan, MP of Kamukunji, and also we shall be joined this morning by a Congo Omogani senior counsel and also senator of Nyamira. We have a full-packed show, but let's see how the weather will be today. All right, let's put this horse into full run by looking at what is fresh off the press this morning. And this is what you're waking up to on the front page of the Standard today. Raila AU job bid splits Azimio principles. There's a bit of discomfort there. Leaders say the list ODM Supremo should have done. Oops, it's just jumped over to the next page. Let me just try and go back again so that we can sell together. It says that, I'm trying to zoom in again. Leaders say the list ODM Supremo should have done is to inform them of the deals he was cutting with the president as a sign of respect and good behavior. That is the story that you have on page 6 of the Standard today. Jeremiah Kioni is here saying, Jubilee Party is saying, in view, the move as an individual and family decision, and I view the move as an individual and family decision, and I will have to live by that. But for the unity and the cohesiveness of the Azimio coalition, if I was in these shoes, I would have updated my fellow partners. Mange Weria of Usawa Party, he says, we have been consuming tear gas together during the protest and have always been united. It will have been better for us to be brought on board in the matter. And Kalonzo Musyoka says, I will endeavor to use my network to see that Raila gets the position. Instead of fighting to be president here, he will now be working with all the 44 presidents. And this is what you can read inside today's Standard, where it seems this was really the best kept secret between Raila and the upper reaches of government, unbeknownst to Azimio principles. So this is bringing some fishes here and a bit of discomfort right now and disquiet, as you can see. And you can read the rest of the details on page 6 of the Standard today. Cabinet face off as ministers' red time in office. President William Ruto is expected to outline his second-year vision after cabinet secretaries presented their key milestone while making pledges for the coming year. You have a story on page 4 of the Standard today. Also, Financial Standard comes in handy for you every Tuesday. Our state plans to raid your pockets again to fund 4.2 trillion shillings budget. And by the way, also we've had members of the NDC, the Non-Dialogue Committee, castigating these plans as well, poking holes in it, being led by Ndeletu Mureithi, who is the chair of the Budgetary Council within Azimio. That is a story you want to follow inside the Standard today. Raila AU job bid splits Azimio principles. Also looking at the teaser there, Ruto rails at his party MPs over performance. Still, that is a question that they're being asked to perform. Rest against time to finish. Kiptum House is on page 3. Taxes, KRA trains gun on diaspora. And Tusker leaves team with hangover. You have a story on page 38 of the Standard this morning. Make sure you grab a copy for all the gritty details. Death traps in schools. That is a splash on the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. The increased enrollment without sufficient expansion of facilities is a ticking time bomb. And that seems to be what the flag is reading here. Families of these children who were splashed here, who died in schools and unclear circumstances, are demanding answers for the tragedies. More alarming is the congestion in learning institutions. One primary school in Mwiki has 5,000 pupils crammed in an area the size of a football pitch that some teachers warn is a disaster waiting to happen. And here is just a list of how the safety standards manual should look like. Classrooms should accommodate a maximum of 40 learners. Sharing of beds is prohibited, hence admissions linked to bed capacity. In dormitories, the space between the beds should be at least 1.2 meters. Corridors should not be less than 2 meters. All doorways should be at least 5 feet wide. Each dormitory should have a door at both ends. At least 4 pit latrines for every 30 learners. That is the basic safety standard that should be observed. Ruto wants total loyalty from Kenya Kwanza MPs. President Ruto has reprimanded Kenya Kwanza legislators who are opposing government policies, including levies, to fund housing and health care projects, as Parliament considers the Affordable Housing Bill 2023 that the government is banking on to continue collecting a controversial levy. The president insisted MPs from the governing coalition must ensure passage of the proposed law. And you have a story on page 5. So if you're going against the grain, you're the rebel. There is your Riot Act, and you can see an insert of how it was going down yesterday in Naivasha. President Ruto, his deputy Rigathi Gachagua, and cabinet secretaries during the National Executive Retreat and the Parliamentary Group consultative meeting at Lake Naivasha Resort yesterday. All that tucked away inside the Daily Nation. Looking on top here on the teaser, public debt surges past 11 trillion shillings. This is on the back page of the Daily Nation. Kenya's public debt shot up by 1.93 trillion shillings in the year ended December 2023, increasing the total loans to 11.14 trillion shillings. Kenya Power billed Kenyans an extra 70 billion shillings, which is illegal. You can follow the story on page 10 of the Daily Nation, and this is where you're paying your exorbitant fees to Kenya Power, albeit illegally, as they say, or they're collecting it illegally, according to the Auditor General. Why I want doctors to end my life? Well, the story there of euthanasia. You can follow the story inside the Daily Nation on why he wants doctors to end his life. This is the Daily Nation. This coming up next is a Star. Big Brother says purpose to prevent attack and cyber risk. This is all about a new plan on how the state is planning to monitor your internet footprint. Government regulations compel providers to disclose user activities. Now they're all over the map. We have heard about also the phone bagging, where they wanted to also install a device in your, I don't know how they do it, but a device that will be also monitoring your phone calls and your SMSs. Now also they will be doing that on the internet as well. Highlight of cyber crime regulation applicable to public and private sectors, establishes security or cybersecurity operations centers set to vet outsource external internet service providers. All critical ICT infrastructures to be housed in Kenya. State to monitor internet footprints. Agencies to maintain database of persons visiting ICT systems. Also, no transfer of ICT system and databases without state approval. State to keep database of cybersecurity institutions and professionals. Establishes cybercrime desks at every police station. Right. That is what you need to know. And all that is splashed inside the Star for you. You can read widely to get more information on that. On the side, but new Kalonzo spoiling for war with president is another story inside the Star today. Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka is seeking to position himself as a new position or opposition voice as he aggressively assembles a formidable 2027 political machine for the presidency. With the impending leadership vacancy at Azimio following Raila Odinga's exit, he's aggressively trying to convince the coalition not to look elsewhere for a new captain but him. That's the story you have on page 6 of the Star. How Abdallah came to help the mentally ill is another story that you can follow inside the Star today. Scared of the dead? It's just work. This is Odworo just giving his story on how he's the government's chief pathologist. You can follow the story inside the Star this morning. Let's see what the People Daily is holding for us. Now, 3.3 billion shillings has been spent on luxury by Ruto, and they're talking about opulence, how Ruto spent 3.3 billion shillings on luxury. Budget chief indicts state for use of billions on recurrent expenditure, but a pittance for development. That is what we have here as a sub-headline on page 4 is where you get all the gritty details, but also illustrations of how that money has been used. 700 million shillings, construction of modern presidential dais at State House Gardens. This is what it has costed. 400 million shillings state purchase of motor vehicles. We have 16.3 million shillings purchase of East African Community Cabinet Secretary Penina Malonza's official car. And you have 1.6 billion shillings to cater for the facelift of Kenya International Conference Center. That is a story that you want to follow inside the People Daily this morning. Also, MPs get tongue lashing over jobs abroad. President furious after leaders at Naivasha retreat appear ignorant of the opportunities. You can follow all that inside the People Daily this morning. And IBC on the spot of the use of cash in last poll. That is a story on page 6 of the People Daily this morning. AU Summit rallies wild support for Palestine. And this story continues on page 16 of the People Daily. AU Summit rallies wild support for Palestine. That is a story that you want to follow on page 18 of the People Daily this morning. Pressure. Uhuru apewe kazi ya AU. That is the story there on the front page of Taifa Leo. Baadhi ya wandani wa rais mstaafu wasema anafaa zaidi kuliko Raila kwa kazi hiyo. That is the story that you want to follow inside the Taifa Leo this morning. Mamlaka Raila ametangaza nia ya kuwania wadhifa wa mwenyekiti wa tume la Umoja wa Afrika AU, that is AUC, unaobaki wazi mwaka wa 2025 there. You can follow the story on page 3 of Taifa Leo. Let's buckle down to some business where this is the revelation that is coming to the fore right now. How regulator inflated power prices by 70 billion shillings in 5 years. How regulator inflated power prices by 70 billion shillings in 5 years. Agency misapplied formula that computes monthly bills. Energy regulator on the spot for illegal calculations, right? Consumer paid an extra 70.35 billion shillings in exaggerated power bills in the 5 years to February 2023 after the Energy and Petroleum Regulator or Regulatory Authority added illegal charges on their monthly fuel surcharge. An analysis by the Business Daily and the Electricity Consumers Society of Kenya and an Auditor General's report revealed that consumers have been overcharged by as much as 4.4 per unit monthly from January 2018 to date. And that is a story you want to follow on page 2. Okay, would there be any respite and relief for this, that we can backdate and get these units given back to the consumers? That is a story that you can follow inside the Business Daily. Audit exposes wastage in World Bank Youth Jobs Plan. A series of blunders in projects or in a project meant to tackle unemployment among the youth formed perfect recipe for the loss of billions of shillings as the government mishandled the World Bank-backed jobs creation plan. Also, Kenya's public debt crosses 11 trillion shillings mark. That is another story you want to follow inside the Business Daily. And ex-Scan Group CEO plans 4.3 billion shillings suit against WPP in UK. Former Scan Group boss, that is Bharat Thakar, has threatened to sue the firm's parent WPP in the UK for what he claims were neo-colonialist and discriminatory practices used to eject him from the firm he founded in 1982. All that is inside the Business Daily this morning. Also, lawyers start reporting data caching money laundering fight. Lawyers will from next month start reporting suspicious transactions by their clients to the Financial Reporting Center in a major boost to fight against money laundering in Kenya. The Anti-Money Laundering and Combating of Terrorism Financing Amendment Bill 2023 will take effect from March the 15th, bringing the law firms into the ambit of reporting entities. And that story continues on page 2 of the Business Daily this morning. We cross over to Uganda, where the UPDF, what new UPDF structure means, a landmark reform of the national defense architecture detailed in a new establishment document, has been clouded by a presidential announcement on Sunday that appeared to be reappointments. To reappoint, I should say, Chief of Defense Forces, General Wilson Mbadi, to the job he is holding. And you have the story on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Monitor this morning, and it's been broken down for you how the structure is aligned right now. As you can see it here, you can grab a copy of the Daily Monitor for this revelations. Also, government moves to hook diaspora on parish model. All that is tucked away inside the Daily Monitor. In Tanzania, 5 telcos fined 2 billion shillings as TCRA cracks down on fraud. Tanzania Communications Regulatory Authority has cracked the whip on 5 top telecom companies for flouting with the SIM card registration rules Act, or as the regulator seeks to contain rising cases of fraud in the sector. You can read all about it inside the Citizen in Tanzania. And government now courts Egyptians to invest in bats 13 to 15 at Darport. That is also another story that is inside the publication today. Tanzania targets a share of $7 billion bamboo market That is another story inside the Citizen. In Rwanda, facility for highly infectious diseases under construction. The center will serve different functions, including isolation, treatment, and training at regional level. This is tucked on page 3. Algerian Army Chief of Staff in Rwanda on official visit. And you can see him here. That is head of International Military Cooperation, Brigadier General Patrick Karuretwa, welcoming Chief of Staff of the People's National Army of Algeria, General Said Chenegriha, who arrived in Rwanda for an official visit on Monday. And on Tuesday today, the Chief of Defense Staff of Algeria is scheduled to visit Kigali Genocide Memorial, the Campaign Against Genocide Museum at Parliament, and Rwanda Defense Force Headquarters, where he will hold meetings with senior Rwandan defense officials. All that is inside the publication today. Search for World War German boat in Rwanda. 10 things that you should know. You can read all about it inside the New Times. All right, let's see what the East African is holding for us this week. Congo is banning. Kinshasa, Rwanda, and Burundi leaders have traded blame on who is funding the new violence in the rest of Eastern region. But the jungles are also foreigners exploiting blood minerals. But in the jungles, not the jungles, but in the jungles are also foreigners exploiting blood minerals. And that is a story that you can follow inside the latest publication of the East African. AU's 2023 scorecard. The continental body takes up new assignments as the forgotten issues rear their ugly heads. You can follow the story on page 10 of the East African. And NTBS cost EAC dearly. Imports quotas, subsidies, custom delays, technical barriers impede trading, leading to low intra-EAC trade. That story continues on page 26 and 27 of East African. China Daily. Fair treatment for Chinese citizens urged. High-level Vienna meeting hears call for Washington to lift its visa restrictions. And also a captivating show. You can see here what was going down after they were actually celebrating the Year of the Dragon. All that is inside the China Daily. Key meeting set on for further deepening reforms. All that also is inside the China Daily. Right, let's see what we have on the international publications. This is the magazines right now. Newsweek, Breaking Point, and is Kim Jong-un's regime beginning to crack? That is a probing question on the front page of the Newsweek. A new hope for America is missing. Also, that is tucked away in the latest publication. Looking at The Economist as well. The right goes gaga. Meet the global anti-globalist alliance. Make America Hungary. Italy, France, Israel, Germany, the Netherlands, Poland, great again. That seems to be the rallying call right now. You can meet the global anti-globalist alliance. All their stories tucked away in the latest edition of The Economist. Goodbye to the racial jobs gap, San Francisco's comeback, China's chip-making plan, and the looming hell in Rafah. And lastly, we have the Time magazine as well. The fast AI war. Parliamentary and other tech giants are building the future of battle in Ukraine. This is the latest edition of the Time magazine for all who wants to get abreast of what is happening on current affairs. Let's look at the editorial cartoon. And this is where I want to rope in our panelists as well. I'm holding court this morning with Danson Mungatana, the Senator of Tana River. Also, we have with us Yusuf Hassan, who is a Member of Parliament Kamukunji. This was a retreat in Naivasha yesterday. We have the cabinet. We had the cabinet also and the parliamentary group meeting just to hold court on a raft of issues regarding just the affairs and housekeeping of the party. And I want just to give this handy opportunity to Yusuf Hassan, if you may just have also the editorial cartoon back so that you may comment on it to tell us who was really on this particular way scale. Cabinet retreat, just generally to set the tone of a conversation. If you may have the editorial cartoon, please. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. I know it was a journey from Naivasha yesterday.
Yes, indeed.
I hounded you to be in studio together with the dancer Mugatana. He was elected actually to spend the night over there because he was tired. Yeah. I said, no, you have to be on the show today. Thank you for showing up.
You have extraordinary persuasive powers, I must say. Well, it was really good to see the cabinet, the government, and members of parliament engage in a discussion about issues related to the performance and effectiveness.
Yes.
And I think some members of parliament had the opportunity to be able to ask questions on pertinent issues or issues of concern. And it was quite interesting because the president somehow seems to be the accomplished master who is quite knowledgeable, almost have a kaleidoscopic perspective of government and how things are going.
Yes.
And some of the cabinet ministers and principal secretaries almost seemed like students who are reporting for a class at a university because he really took them to task on a number of issues. And he expressed his concerns about the fact that, in fact, both some of the MPs and the cabinet secretaries and principals were not up to speed with some of the key policy, strategy and implementation of some of the government's programs. For example, on the president is very keen on exporting jobs. This is a terminology I've had there. It's now exporting jobs to foreign countries, providing opportunities for young Kenyans who are unemployed to get opportunities elsewhere. And there are quite a number of members of parliament, for example, the issue of nurses. A number of countries are now recruiting nurses from Kenya. And this is an issue that has been publicized quite a lot. I myself have attended even the opening of certification center by one of the big American companies in Nairobi to certify nurses. So naturally, when some members of parliament said they didn't know, he asked them whether they read the newspapers, because this was a highly publicized and a well-known fact. So in general, I think it put the cabinet secretaries and some of the members of parliament on their feet.
And of course, we're talking about nurses. I've seen in one of the publications today, we have the nurses body also raising concerns about the labor migration that is happening. And it's a huge, they're going out in droves, and they're worried that this might affect also the healthcare system here in the country as well. I think that should be a pertinent issue as much as...
Of course.
We are trying to push the labor migration policy, but still...
I have said it a number of times that, in fact, we should balance, and we should be careful on what we want to do, while it is important to provide employment to our people. At the same time, we should not be depleted of our expertise, some kind of brain drain. And there are certain jobs that are in scarcity, certain qualification skills that are in scarcity. And it looks like nursing would be one of them soon, because there's an active recruitment of nurses to various countries in the world. Many countries are looking for nurses. In this, when this certification center was opened, there were diaspora leaders from Minneapolis, Kenyans in the diaspora. And they said that the state of Minneapolis alone, which is among the 50 states of the United States, requires about 10,000 nurses. This is massive. And if you look at our capacity, we don't produce enough nurses. We don't produce enough doctors. We don't produce enough engineers, architects, experts, that are required for the national development of this young nation. So I think there is need to be a balance somewhere where we would in fact take efforts not only to retain expertise and people with specialized knowledge, but also to bring back members of the diaspora community. Because if we have any aspiration to be a developed country, we do need to have those skills within our country at our disposal, and for them to be able to play a role in the move forward as a country. But if we are now exporting in huge numbers critical areas, critical knowledge areas, then we would probably run into some trouble in the near future.
Indeed, and it takes a long time to hone the skills, train them as well. You spend so much training, some of us.
And money.
Yeah, and money. It's training the young ones, and we export them. Far cry to what we had with President Kibaki, when he was going outside, was imploring and entreating them, come back home, that we may build the country. But right now is go outside, look for jobs. But good to see you, good morning.
Thank you, good morning, Dibal.
Yes, at least your eyes are not in the red,
no.
so to speak.
I tried to get some early sleep. So we had a great retreat. I want to just say that one of the things that I picked out from there was the president repeatedly said, every one of you here, you asked for the job, you looked for it. Those who are in elected positions, those who are not in elected positions, you all looked for these jobs. So please be committed 100% like I am. I can't be knowing, me I'm the president, I can't be knowing more in your ministry than you should know. You know, I'm the president. I should not be knowing more in your constituency than you should, or more in your county than you should. So we need to, buckle up and be serious about information gathering and following on what is useful to our people. So there was that introspection on your own parts, that you have a responsibility. I'm Senator for Tana River. I need to know what I'm supposed to do and clog in, so that we can clog in with the MPs, with the governors, with the national government, so that we actually drive the economy towards productivity. And then there were other issues. My colleague has talked about the labor market and so on. I just wanted to state that employment is a major issue in this country, and we discussed it there. And we were given statistics by the minister that we have about 5 million youths who are unemployed. And the president was saying, we can grow the economy without growing jobs. So we must be deliberate about what we want to achieve. Now, affordable housing is one of the ways we want to create employment. We must be deliberate. Labor migration is another way we are going to be deliberate about creating opportunities. That is why we have, as a government, gone out to look for opportunities for our people. And you will find that our opportunities are there. President said I've had meetings with big companies, and opportunities are there. The minister informed us that we have had to sign bilateral labor agreements. These BLAs are critical for the country to be able to secure some of those opportunities. Germany, for example, has given us 250,000 opportunities, because that's an old population and they don't have enough people coming into the job market. And I'll tell you that they are pushing that the bilateral labor agreement should be ready by June, so that our people can take up those opportunities. I'm telling you, the digital economy. We had Minister Owalo there explaining to us what the digital economy can do right in your county, right in your constituency, giving wonderful employment opportunities. When you are seated right there in Garsen, in the computer hub, in the internet hub area that has been set up, you can start earning money. So Kenyans need to know that this government is looking at trying to be deliberate about tackling that 5 million job unemployment challenge that is there for our youths. And we need to be proactive. That's why we as leaders need to keep preaching this thing. go into the internet. The National Employment Authority has advertised his positions. The minister stood there and said, I secured 2,500 opportunities for people to go and work as nurses. I only got 1,100. You see? So these opportunities are there, and we need to work. We also had other ministers making presentations and answering questions. For example, we asked as a body, members who are representative of the people, we asked them, you are telling us about job opportunities, but passports, where are the passports? There are huge queues at Nyayo House there. And somebody went and said, in fact, there's a cartel, and you have to pay for you to get your passport out very quickly. So it was very, very good to see minister standing there and saying, whatever the people are saying there, I take full responsibility. You know, that kind of leadership that you've been lacking for some time. And then saying, this department generates 20 billion every year, but we get nothing. We've got broken things, we've not paid suppliers, we've got pending bills, we've got problems with suppliers because we are not servicing them. And some of them are inherited problems. And right there, discussions were made so that your appropriations in aid, the money you collect, you can retain some of it. And it was agreed that they will be retaining 5 billion going forward with other budgets. The issue of certificate of good conduct, I also want to tell Kenyans that within 3 months that problem will be sorted out. Because again, that is a department that is developing and creating 3 billion. Imagine every year, the National Forensic Lab, Apokwa Police, they are bringing into the exchequer 3 billion, and then you get nothing. So you have a broken typewriter stuff that you can't fix because you don't have the money, and yet you are creating so much money. So again, the appropriations in aid, we are there discussing, Minister anaulizwa, Professor Ndungu anaulizwa, why can't you do this? And the Minister anaulizwa, it was a very useful retreat.
Thank you.
It was solution-oriented, and I think we are going to see better performance from the government. We are going to see people taking more responsibility for the dockets that they have been given. And so I thought it was a very useful, and then they remained because we, the senators and the members of parliament who are there, we raised issues, we engaged, but then they remained because they are supposed to finish on Wednesday morning, I think is when they come back. But the work that is going on there, I think, Dibal, and I will say without any doubt, that we got the right captain. President is taking his job very seriously, and he is pushing the ministers and pushing all of us to achieve the agenda for which we promised our people, and I think we will deliver. Okay.
Let me just also give a hearty welcome to Congo Morgan. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Morning.
Yes. You can have just your introductory remarks. I don't know if you put details also on the retreats. How is Nyamira also? I can see there's a very contentious creation of Nyamira University. It's a hot potato topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't tell you much about the retreat. The Kenya Kwanza is Jubilee and UDA. They are the ones who can speak about it. But I saw a bit of scolding of MPs by the president, and I don't know that it was jeering back from the MPs. That's the much I saw, but those opportunities can be very useful for the members of parliament if we remain true to our call as parliamentarians. That could have been a very good opportunity, and I saw an attempt by Senator Cheriot giving indicators to the president that there are a number of bills that may have issues with the Senate. But if you ask me, that engagement should be an opportunity for honorable members of parliament to raise issues with the executive, especially where the bills being pushed through by the president have a disconnect with the constituencies. And in the US, when members of Congress meet the president, they meet him to tell him where they have objections to a number of bills. It's not an occasion for you to sit down and get lectures from the leadership of the party or the president. So that was a lost opportunity for our members of parliament to tell the president, look, you have this agenda you're pushing, but down at the grassroots, from the viewpoint of the people we represent, these are the issues we think some of these proposed legislations have, and this is the negative impact they may have on the people. And remember, the president was very clever. He told members of parliament, this is examination time. If you don't do the right thing, you will face the wrath of the people. This weekend I was not just in Nyamira, I was also in Migori, I was in central Kanyamkago. And you know, the people down there have still a big problem with this housing business. I was with the NAT officials in Nyamira, and they cannot understand why the president is pushing this housing bill, whereas the people on the ground don't want it. Yesterday I was in West Mugrango constituency, township ward. Everybody who stood to speak said, we have read that this housing bill is coming to the House. Please hear our views. And people are very clever. They have issues on this idea of taxing them at 1.5% of their gross salary, not basic salary. They have a problem that this agenda of housing is focusing on urban areas, building homes apparently in urban areas, but ignoring that the majority of the poor people who live in extreme poverty are in the rural areas. And they are wondering if there was good faith in this scheme, then the housing for the poor should be devolved down to the counties, because housing is devolved. So that you say, if you want to collect money, you share it down to all the 47 constituencies, and you have a campaign of building homes for the poor. If it is genuinely an attempt to remove people from poverty and make them live in decent homes. So this examination time that the president was telling my colleagues, members of parliament, is for you to put your ear on the ground, to pass laws that resonate with the common mwananchi, pass laws that are not putting pain, tears, and suffering in Kenyans. The teachers out there are crying about this housing levy. It's very unpopular. Even if I invite any of my colleagues here, we go to their constituencies and you talk about this housing thing, it's very, very unpopular. Finally, if you give me a minute, the issue of job migration. I asked a nurse, why are you people not interested in this job migration? And they said this thing is being done without proper consultation with the nurses. One, people are being separated from families. They're being told, here is a job, but you leave behind your young children. Most nurses have young families. So the president has lost disconnect. He thinks what nurses want is just to hop into planes and and travel out of the country. But people have families. They don't want to abandon their families. When you go out there is no guarantee for the education for your children. That's why the nurses are reluctant. So if you ask me, Dibal, this country, I serve in the health committee. This country has a shortage of trained and skilled nurses. What we need is to first satisfy the job market in our own country, because you need to provide health care to your population. Any government in office must take care of the health of its citizens, okay? So we need to, first of all, have competitive remuneration for our nurses, fill all the vacancies that we have for our nurses before you start exporting them out there. And even when you talk about Germany, you also need to look at that job market. The 250,000 plus jobs that the Germans may want us to send Kenyans to do in Germany are skilled. Germany wants engineers, Germany wants plumbers. Of course, Germany wants nurses. Then there is also the issue of language. You know, most of the organization, not all, but most of them, also want people who speak in German. So let the president step down from the ivory tower, step down, listen to the Kenyans. Let him put his ear on the ground and listen to Kenyans. That's why you can see everywhere the president goes now, the cheering that he used to receive is no longer there. He's welcomed with jeers, not cheers, because he's not connecting with the common mwananchi. He has lost connection with the common mwananchi, and they just see him as somebody who's just talking but not solving their day-to-day problems.
Mm-hmm. Right. Let's hear from Utene Amolo. Actually, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you.
Welcome.
For having me.
Yes.
I got in the middle of a discussion about Naivasha.
Just getting introductory remarks, yes. Naivasha.
So yes. I'll go right into it. The idea of a PG is a good idea for any party or coalition. But the idea of a PG that brings in Parliament and the executive is a bad idea in terms of democracy. I have kept saying to deaf ears that it should be understood that there is no government in Parliament. We only have the majority side and the minority side. And the theory of our constitutional design is Parliament as Parliament is supposed to be a check on the executive. It is not supposed to be subordinate to the executive. It is not, the agenda of the executive should be set by the executive and brought to Parliament. And if Parliament finds it in order, then to pass it or to reject it. An idea of having a situation where members of Parliament are being assembled at the invite of the executive to be lectured on what to do and what not to do is not a good idea. And you could, that's number one. Number two, whatever my colleagues say here that happened, usually the truth of what happens in these parliamentary group meetings is never said. You'll only get to learn of them weeks and months later. What is always brought forth and what is said is what they want the public to hear. So whatever else my brother Honorable Mungatana is saying that happened, that was good, I think that's usually the smokescreen. Snippets of what actually happened is when I saw my friend Kimani Ichung'wah leading the onslaught against members of Parliament for demanding CDF and then intentionally misrepresenting it to the gathering. I saw him say that, some members of Parliament were gathering signatures to remove a cabinet secretary, and some of the Kenya Kwanza MPs were joining, and there was no such thing. I was the one leading the collection of signatures, and it was purposefully for a special sitting to discuss the non-dismantlement of CDF money. And to call members of Parliament who do not receive that money, they're only pushing on behalf of their constituents, and to scold them, I think is inappropriate. You won't believe, to date, we are already discussing the next budget. But to date, all that we have received in terms of CDF funds is 18%, with barely 4 months to go to the end of the financial year. One would have thought that they would take time to explain in great detail, if they needed to, why we are in that state of affairs and not scold members of Parliament who are demanding release of that money. Thirdly, I think that the truth is the president knows who in his cabinet is working and who's not working. He knows who of his PSS are working and who's not working. You do not need a meeting for that. He's on record as saying that he knows some of them who don't even know what's happening in the office. He is the chief executive and he gets all sorts of briefings. By now, 1 year down the line, I'd have thought that he would crack the whip. He would have removed those who are not working. He would have hauled to jail those who are corrupt, because he knows all that. You don't need this kind of thing. In fact, there's nothing new that a member of Parliament will tell the president that he doesn't already know, either about Parliament or about his own cabinet. So you don't really need this kind of thing. What you need is just action, but we've not seen any action. We have kept seeing promises 1 year down the line. I think the promises keep shifting. 100 days, to 6 months, to 1 year, now to 2.5 years. You know, it's a shifting goalpost that will go up to 5 years. You know, that's what you need, action. In terms of the foreign jobs,
Before you go to the foreign jobs, I wanted just to ask, because this is...
I wanted to
get clarification also on the assemblage of the parliamentary groups and the cabinet together.
Yeah, I wanted to come back on that.
Yes.
But no, I'm trying to...
Can you finish on the jobs so that
keep
you can...
quiet so that I don't look like I am jumping on things. So I'm really holding myself.
Good, son of Mungatana. You are a gentleman, so I'm sure you'll hold.
Yes,
right.
sir.
The idea of the foreign jobs, I know of no country that can be pleased by sending its workforce abroad instead of utilizing them locally. The idea of sending significant work teams abroad is a demonstration of failure internally and is not something to be proud of. It is something to regret and find a way of remedying. You do not train, whether it be nurses or lawyers or pilots or doctors. The amount of public funds that is used to train any professional within the country is significant. That there's no reason for you to be proud that the benefit of that training is being enjoyed in another country. So the first port of call should always be to perfect the situation internally. Not to have money to pay your workforce is regrettable. I think if you look at the health professionals, they will actually tell you that even if you took nurses, for example, the number of nurses that we have trained is not even commensurate with the need for nurses in this country. The reason why many of them are not employed is not because we don't need them. It is because there's no money to pay them. Now, that, I think, is a point of regret. It is not something to be proud of, generally. That's number one. Number two, by the time you are sending your workforce abroad, it should be very structured. You should be very clear, not just in terms of where you are sending them and what they're going to do, but also in terms of their protection. I regret to see that we are celebrating that, I don't know, we are sending how many nurses, especially to the Middle East. But we know that over the years we've had significant problems with some of those countries, and yet we've not had any clear structure of protecting the people we send abroad or protecting them from exploitation. Some of them are even killed. Some of my constituents come to me. Their family members are stranded abroad. Some have been killed. Some, they have taken away the passports. And there's no clear structure of protecting them. When I was ombudsman, you see, you can't engage with a foreign country. So the most you can do is write to, the ambassador, the embassy as the case may be, or the Minister of Foreign Affairs here. But usually there's very little response. There's no clear structure. Before we start celebrating taking people abroad, let's have a very, very clear structure of assurance of those who are going and even of their families in terms of protection. But lastly, I think we are just obsessed with numbers, most of which I think are just numbers in the air. If it comes to a real examination, I don't think any of those numbers will match the reality of anywhere. I think except Haiti, that we are celebrating again sending our police force to Haiti on a doomed mission, a mission that nothing good can come out of, only bad things. And, I think it's already started. One of the constituents of my brother Morgan here, or the other, the Kissi Nation, already lost his life en route, I think in the US. So, I mean, that's just a doomed mission. And so let's be very careful about celebrating all this, sending people abroad.
All right.
Maybe I can just say this, that first of all, I have said here that the Minister for Labour, when she was making her presentation, she puts the figures there, that we have a job unemployment of about 5 million youths in Kenya. And this is a real problem that we have to tackle. And the president, while commenting on that, said that we can have a growth in the economy and we don't have growth in jobs. So we have to purpose, we have to be deliberate about growing the economies and growing jobs. And that is why we are doing the affordable housing, which has, as of now, created at least 180,000 jobs, you know, of people who are unemployed, people who didn't know what to do with their time, and consequences are like crime also goes down. The labor migration should be looked at from that larger perspective. And I wanted to just inform my colleague here that we were informed properly that there are BLS, bilateral labor agreements, that are being executed between our country and those countries which are receiving our people. So that all these issues is raising of security, of employment payment, of even agents. You know, some agents have been exploiting our people. In Kenya here, they are asking for $1,800 as commission, while in other countries like Ethiopia, they're asking only $900 in commission. So we want to streamline all that. And for information also, the government has created a one-stop shop in 9th floor NSSF building, so that all these issues, passport applications, signing of documentations and stuff like that, is processed in one place, so that when Kenya is sending workers of this caliber to, say, Saudi Arabia, workers of this caliber, say, to England, to Germany, and where, it is done government to government in a very structured manner. So I wanted to answer that one and assure my colleague that Kenyans are in good hands. I wanted to also correct the impression that we were being lectured there. You know, media and opposition people, they like exaggerating things. I was there, and I think I am generally above the average intelligence, and I do not believe that I was lectured there. What happened was that there were presentations, and then there's a Q&A. Members of Parliament raised a lot of questions. Senators raised a lot of questions. And the person who was chairing is the president. So he answers, and then he asks another minister to answer, and another minister, so long as that department is relevant.
Hang on.
Right.
Yeah,
I haven't finished.
You haven't finished. You'll pick it up on it.
Yes.
But I want us to take a short break. The critical question will be, the critical question is, we amended, or there was an amendment to the standing order.
Yes.
That this cabinet secretary should appear before, you know, the House. The House.
Yes.
So why are we taking a portion of the parliamentary group, and then we have the cabinet secretary talking about critical issues, without the other side of...
And I will answer that.
I mean, doesn't that beat the purpose of amending that particular? And is it also in order for one side of government to just be listening to what the cabinet secretaries are actually talking about, the different dockets, and you questioning them, and is not within the precincts of the parliamentary settings? But we're going to take a short break. When we circle back, of course, shall be looking at that and other stories as well regarding the AU job and how it's splitting Azimio, and a raft of other issues as well. Also, that spat between President Uhuru Kenyatta and the former president. Of course, that is President Uhuru Kenyatta, the former president, and the current president, William Ruto as well. Don't go away. You're watching Siasa Fiesta here on Morning Prime.